What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Heel Report, which is a part of TarHeel247.com. I'm Jacob. He's AJ, and we're here to talk a little Carolina basketball. We're not calling this one a daily drop, AJ. Are we back to calling this? Is this a straight up UNC basketball show right here?
It kind of feels like football season.
Kind of does a little bit, doesn't it?
Well, we do the Wednesday football show because obviously they're not playing twice a week in football. It's kind of cool. I actually put Noah and I did a football schedule pod, and I called it the football show. I didn't know what to call it because it wasn't.
I was wondering what you called it because I didn't call it anything in my email.
I originally had the Tar Heel 24/7 or UNC football pod, and I was like, that's stupid. I'll just call it the show, and wanted to see if you would notice it. But this is going to be an actual UNC basketball show. I wish we had opportunities to do more fuller shows like this, but people will say, why can't you? Well, logistics. It's not like we just sit around waiting to record a pod. We got a few things going on here.
Well, and this one provided the opportunity because, kind of a week off between the games. We typically just put out drops every day on different topics, but we don't have a ton of time, obviously, now between we also have some other podcasts. I know you and David are doing one as well. We don't have a ton of time now between you traveling to Atlanta on Friday and us being able to record on which Wednesday right now. So we said, know what, man, let's come on here and talk a few different.
And then
topics.
The whole craziness come back on. It's been a gauntlet here when you think about it as far as travel goes. Yeah. It's going to be a 7-week stretch. We're in Atlanta, home, in Dallas, home, in California, in Virginia, in Atlanta, consecutive all the last Saturdays. But then you throw in, you going back to Thanksgiving, Florida, come back for a day and a half, then Kentucky. October was, late September was Orlando. Then October and consecutive weekends, you have Cal, Utah, and Syracuse. It's been a lot of travel this year, and it's been the travel where it's 2 and 3 nights. And then, of course, Cal was 6. I was there 6 days. So that kind of sometimes affects pods. We don't like. I prefer not to do them in the hotel room somewhere.
Yeah, we've had to at times.
I did Hubert Monday in the hotel room, and I don't think the camera shows whoever's asking the question. I hope not, because you got a hotel behind you. It's just not a great look.
It doesn't on the recordings, at least, of those.
It was a nice hotel, but it's just not a great look. So
yeah, I know what you mean. But you're a road warrior, AJ, and but not too many trips left though. Once you get down to finish with Atlanta on this weekend, and we got Miami and Syracuse.
A week later, you got to go to Miami a week later, and Syracuse. Then it's postseason. So I was talking to my wife yesterday. I was like, I've been gone a lot. And secretly, she's probably going, it's been glorious.
Yeah, she said, you sure you don't want to?
She's like, I wish you were gone that much. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure you do. Because my daughter always says, we have a great time when you're gone. They load up on Instacart and DoorDash. And
yeah, that sounds
I've chosen now. I used to kind of look at my account when I was gone. I would say, please don't do that. I said, what got you stuff, And then I would look and I was like, damn. There goes Instacart for $146, and there goes DoorDash for $92 from some Mexican restaurant. Now I don't look. I have learned my lesson.
Three words. AJ, 3 words. Ignorance is bliss.
Ignorance is unbelievable bliss.
We don't need to look at that.
You see me walking to the hotel lobby with a smile on my face is because I haven't looked at my account.
Yeah, you don't want to ruin your day, man. Don't look at that. Just out of sight, out of mind, man. Out of sight, out of mind. But we're here to talk about a few different topics in this one. We're going to start off with the net a little bit, kind of give an update with where Carolina stands. Not necessarily because of the win over Virginia, but because there's an interesting stretch coming up with a lot of Q1 opportunities, and we'll kind of illustrate that here. Talk a little Caleb Wilson as well. He's almost a guy we haven't spent a lot of time talking about in recent weeks because there's been so many other different topics to talk about. We're going to talk about some of the just records he's set and some of them. I mean, it's almost like how good he's been to almost going under the radar because it feels like people aren't talking about him as much. It's just kind of he's really good and we're kind of used to it at this point. So we're going to highlight some of that stuff, and then at the end we'll wrap it up with a little bit of Dean Dome chatter, maybe a little bit around that. Yeah. Talk about what's going on with that, and Jarin as well. We're going to throw Jarin.
Yeah, I got some
that too,
really interesting Jarin Stevenson numbers for you.
Yeah, we're going to throw Jarin, and then that was a late addition to the podcast lineup. So we'll let AJ kind of take the hold on.
It's in the odds and ends that will appear sometime today, I think, on the site.
Yes,
today meaning. Well, what day? Okay, so it'll appear on Wednesday on the site. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure. And if not Wednesday, it'll be Thursday morning. I'm still sorting out
TBD
layout. A lot of it depends on what Anna has for football recruiting. I know there's a piece Wednesday morning, and she may have some more. So I like to spread stuff out and kind of I don't want to have like 9 straight basketball pieces and then 4 straight football recruiting. We try to mix it up there for everybody. So, but there will be an odds and ends that has some really cool things. And the Jarin numbers will be in that, but we're going to talk about that as well. Yep. It was interesting looking up that stuff, and Carolina fans will be pleased with the trajectory that Jarin Stevenson is currently on.
Yeah, coming off a big second half against Virginia as well. The Jarin Stevenson game. I'm going to call it the Jarin Stevenson half because it wasn't really a Jarin Stevenson game. It was Jarin Stevenson 12 minutes and 42 seconds to really be specific with it. But yeah, we'll talk about him a little bit later on in this one. But let's start with the net.
12:42, man.
Oh, God, it was a fantastic 12:42, man. You get 12:42. You get 12, 13 minutes out of him like that every night. Carolina might win the national freaking championship. But
17 points, a drawn charge, and a Gatorade bath. It's pretty good work.
Good Lord, yeah, you get soaked. I use a couple of those pictures they posted on our recent thumbnails. Yeah, I was like, because Getty Images, I love Getty. They had like 8 photos from the game. So I was like scavenging because we've done so many.
You get 2 top 20 teams playing, and you got those 2 programs playing. And they're.
I was assuming it was the snow, and then, maybe they got out of town.
A shortage of photographers, and there may have been somebody else whose photos they were taking and using in Getty.
I don't know. Yeah, we didn't end up getting a lot from that game, and then USA Today didn't have any either. So, oh well. But we made it work with those other images that Carolina posted, a little behind the scenes locker room stuff. But AJ, let's start with the net. As I mentioned, Carolina currently sitting number 23 in the net right now, number 29 in KenPom, if you want to throw that in there too. 4 Q1 wins so far this season. I believe they're 4-4 in Q1. 6 more quad 1 games coming up before the ACC tournament. This is where it gets interesting, though, AJ. 2 Q3 games in 3 days coming up. That starts on Saturday at Georgia Tech and then ends on Syracuse on Monday. Pretty quick turnaround for North Carolina. That game obviously being in the Smith Center. And then it's a gauntlet after that, man. 6 of the last 9 games are Q1 games. And I think what we're going to talk about here, AJ, is when you read those numbers right there, it makes the significance of these next 2 even more important, especially when you consider the amount of Q1 games coming up after these 2, again, with Georgia Tech and Syracuse. So Carolina can't be BSing here. They can't be going into Georgia Tech, lackadaisical or overlooking them. Same with Syracuse when they come back home after a quick turnaround. These are 2 games that Carolina needs to take care of business in because of the gauntlet that comes out after that with what I mentioned, 6 of the last 9 games being Q1. So I think the reason we wanted to pull out the net, show some of those numbers, but more importantly, show that, Greenville's not necessarily off the table right now.
Oh, not at all.
It's going to require a lot of winning, but you go and lose one of these 2 games with that gauntlet coming up. I think that Greenville destination hopes just kind of dwindle very fast. So very important couple of games coming up before, really diving into a very tough stretch to wrap up ACC play.
Yeah, there's a similarity to last year in the sense that they had that 6-game win streak in February last year that kind of got them in the tournament. They had to beat Wake in the ACC tournament as well, but it put them in position. I think that the 6 quad 1s coming up here in February, and then I guess going into early March, give them an opportunity to play themselves into Greenville in a similar kind of way. But of those 9, after Georgia Tech and Syracuse, the other 3 that are not quad 1 is at Syracuse, which is borderline quad 1. Mm-hmm. I mean, God, Syracuse should be so much better, by the way.
They should be. We were talking about that off camera.
Green Autry is just, I'm sorry, but that does not look like a very well-coached team. Watching them against NC State, that's some terrible offense that they ran during a long stretch in that game. One of them is Pitt at home, and I guess they throw in the Capel component. I guess anything can happen. And the other one is Virginia Tech at home, which quite frankly often looks like a quad 1 type team. I mean, if it's a road game, it's quad 1. They're at the point now where neutral site would be quad 1. Home, it wouldn't be quad 1 against them, but Virginia Tech 100% can come in and beat the Tar Heels. Mm-hmm. So they need to treat that sort of like a quad 1 caliber opponent. I think they're pretty good. And they're probably a tough matchup for Carolina because of the way that they play. So there are a lot of losable games coming up for this team, especially if they don't have full traction. And that's what I want to know, what the second half at Cal to me meant more after what we saw this past week. We really downplayed it after Cal, and we had every reason to downplay it, but it meant more because some of that urgency stuff that they learned there and some of the other little nuances that they don't always have as a part of their game, they kind of learned a little bit there, and they got that spark there. They were able to find either they used it a lot with Notre Dame, and they had it late in the first half and throughout the second half at Virginia. So I still think they're in accumulation mode, but you got to really take off now. The Rocket needs to start going. It's the end of January. They have one game left in January. It's on the 31st at Georgia Tech, a place that they've struggled in the past. Really good Carolina teams have lost there. Again, they have lost to bad Georgia Tech teams there. Mm-hmm. So they really need to be ready, need to show the focus, all the stuff that they've talked about, all this talk about, well, it's a new team for Hubert. He has 11 new players. Everybody else got 11 new players pretty much. So many new rosters out there. Basically, February is here, and it's time to take off. Mm-hmm. And you have a 2-month sprint to whatever it is you're going to achieve. If it's less than 2 months, then it's less than 2 months. But the goal is to play for another 2 months. So they need to take off now. All these little things that we've talked about that have been issues, but we've seen some responses to those, positive responses to those issues. It all needs to come together. They've had a week in between games. They need to take the court at McCamish Pavilion. And by the way, it'll be their third pavilion in the last 4 road games. How about that? The new ACC.
That's hard-hitting journalism right there, isn't
it? It is. I mean, pavilions are kind of a West Coast thing. And for whatever reason, Georgia Tech decided to throw a pavilion on there. There aren't many on the East Coast. But anyway, when I think of pavilions, I think of like water fountains in the back of the arena.
Yeah, I think of White Lake. I've talked about it on here. They used to have a pavilion down the road, which has had a bunch of like amusement rides, a few that like could have easily just broken at any time. So when I think pavilion, I think of like a hangout spot, like an arcade and stuff like that. So it's very different in my head.
I think of West Coast basketball. Hey, there's a game, guys. Let's go. Okay. Yeah. That sounds like a good idea. And you go watch a game and there's an old water fountain in the corner and then that's that. Yep. So those Northeastern schools. So they've got to be that team now. Like you've got to really take that next step and you got to launch in the deep end, splash around. It's got to be who you are, right? Yeah. Now's the time to be that. And I think these next 2 games are not screw around games. Mm-hmm. You could lose both. That the group that takes the floor for Syracuse looks so much more impressive when you just look at them than how they perform. And they've got some players. They got a 1st-round pick in Donnie Freeman, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Georgia Tech's got talent. You think Bongo's going to play in the NBA? Mm-hmm. Obviously, Reeves has been around for a while. They got some players there, so you got to be careful. This is why it's up here. If you're going to be a team that contend for something significant, it's got to be up here. Mm-hmm. So they must approach both of these games with a champion's mentality. And if they do, they should be able to deliver a couple of blows during the course of the game as it builds to sort of put both teams out. They should do that in both these games if they're the team that we think they can be, if they're the team that, more importantly, they think they can be and should be. And they'll have to show that this weekend. The days of, well, just get a win and get out of here. I'm not saying those days are over because they're going to have some games coming up that are going to be like that. But these 2, they need to make a little bit of a statement. They need to clobber some people. Mm-hmm. And they need to clobber some conference teams that have talent, that could give them trouble, but shouldn't.
Yeah, it needs to be a springboard like me and Noah talked about in our pod. Like the UVA win, it's if you go and struggle against Georgia Tech or Syracuse and lose one of those games, it's 1 step forward, 2 steps back. The UVA win, especially that second half with how well you performed coming off a really dismal week on the West Coast, it's got to be a springboard for you moving forward. You can't just like, oh, yeah, we beat Virginia, had a really good second half, and then we don't show up against Georgia Tech and maybe barely squeak out a win. The performances need to be there as well. And I think that's something to keep an eye on these next 2 games. Are these next 2 games that Carolina should be winning? Absolutely. But if the performances are not good and you're kind of scraping by, then I think you put up another red flag and say, well, you won, but what are you going to do out in these next 9 when you've got 6 Q1 opponents coming up? So, yeah, you want to see good performances in these next 2, most importantly, I think.
That 40-19 run needs to be the launching point.
100%.
That drawn charge by Jarin Stevenson on the next possession, him hitting a 3, the best 2-possession sequence any Tar Heels had all year, and most important, that needs to be your launching point. You can't go a couple weeks down the road and say, boy, that was a good game. And that's all it was, an isolated good game or a good 22 minutes, right? Mm-hmm. It needs to be a morphing into who you are. Now, you're not going to go 40-19 at Virginia in every performance, right? But you've got to be really good, and you've got to play the way you should play and can play. the commitment to Derek Dixon as a starting point guard has to be there. I was on John Henson's podcast the other day, and there were some similarities we talked about with Kendall Marshall, with Derek Dixon, and a couple of them. The length, they see the floor, heads up. They're both heads up guys. First time we saw Derek Dixon in practice back in September, first thing I thought about, heads up. He sees the head, okay? Or he sees around him, everything around him. The pitch ahead, the bigs ran the floor in Charlottesville because they knew that they could get rewarded because the pitch ahead was there. The pitch ahead hasn't always been there. So when it's there, the bigs are going to run the floor. They get rewarded. Caleb and Jarin both had transition buckets in the second half from a pitch ahead. Little things like this need to be who you are moving forward. That needs to be a part of the attack. I think that they've been quicker offensively in the half court the last two games. They haven't run as many sets that get lost where they just get stagnant, and the term I've used before, you've used it before as well, playing in sand. They can't do that. They've got to have more of a skip in their step offensively because they've got people who can make shots. It's not like they have to do everything humanly possible in a 30-second possession to get Caleb a shot. Other guys can get shots. Of course, when Caleb's going through a long stretch when he's not getting shots, they need to be better at that. And they had one of those stretches the other day as well again. But they've got to take all those good things, which I think is what they can be as a team moving forward. And they have to be that team. They have to connect themselves to that. They can't go back into, oh, well, they got a lead over FSU and let them back in, or a lead over Wake Forest and let them back in. And we've now found out that Wake's not very good. And by the way, the people who dogged Notre Dame last week, guys, Notre Dame's better than you thought. I told you they've got 2 quad 1 wins without Marcus Burton. Should have a third at Cal. And honestly, they should have beaten Virginia. So not a terrible team. I think Notre Dame, I think, is better than Wake right now. So
yeah,
Wake's a mess, and I think that Steve Ford. There are 3 coaches right now. Carolina plays the next 2. Plays 2 of them in the next 2 games. And then there's Steve Forbes, and then there's Earl Grant. They don't play them. There's no way he's back. So there's 4 that are probably gone in the league.
Yeah.
And Carolina plays 2 of them in the next 2 games. So I really look forward to see. This is the thing I love so much about doing this. Is to me, it's like every game is like a new chapter in a book, but you're not sure where it's going to go. Especially with this club, there's no certainty yet. There's no guarantee. You can't be certain guys, and if you're a betting guy and you're going to plop down a couple of marbles on this or that, Carolina probably driving you crazy this year.
Oh God, yeah.
With some of that stuff.
Yeah.
So they need to become more predictable in the sense that, hey, they're going to show up. They're ready to play out of the gate. They're going to get after it on the glass. They're going to get after it in transition. Bigs are going to run the floor because they know that the guy, their 6'5" point guard, his head's going to be up. He's going to see the floor and he can pitch it ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. And the, Northern Virginia similarities between Derek Dixon and Kendall Marshall as well. Throw that one in the mix. But yeah, I agree with you guys completely on that. I've seen those. It's the mannerisms, man. It's hard not to, you see him play a little bit and you're like, God, that reminds me of somebody. Oh yeah. It reminds me of
drive.
Yeah.
And you told me before we started that some people were comparing Derek to Joel Berry. The one comparison I will embrace there is that Joel was good driving. Joel is not a beat you on the first step guy. He was not super athletic. That's why he didn't play in the NBA. Didn't make it in the NBA, but he could get a guy on his hip and he's strong.
Yeah.
Joel was football strong.
He was a dog too. Yeah, he was a dog.
He did play football when he was younger, but he could have played college football. And he would get a guy on his hip and he'd get a shot off and he'd get it off. We're seeing that from Derek. He had a couple of those drives against UVA where, okay, that's there, and that's just going to make the offense so much better. It makes it more difficult for teams to double on other guys. They have to help and rotate defensively down low. When they're pulling a guy off of somebody, that means somebody's open. I think Derek's vision over time will more and more see those guys and he'll get the ball to them. So, but I think it's more a little bit of Kendall Marshall. And remember, Kendall Marshall was a first-round pick. I'm not saying Derek's going to be that. There are similarities, and he could provide for this team some of what Kendall did. I mean, Kendall was an assist machine.
Oh, God. It's something.
And he was a thread-the-needle guy. Kendall and Ed Code are the 2 best passing point guards I've covered at Carolina as far as threading the needle and say, good God, how do you get the ball to that guy?
I know, man.
They were both that way.
Unbelievable.
Derek, we haven't seen that yet from him, and I'm not sure he's going to rack up those kind of numbers. But you know what? He's a better shooter than both of them were.
Yeah, that's a fair point. That's
perimeter, and that I think today that plays into what they want to do maybe a little bit better. So I really think that his evolution over the next, where they have 11 games left, is going to be huge because we've already seen a difference in 3 games with him as a starter. And the other thing I talked to John Henson about was that the last 2 games, we're not seeing Derek pick up his dribble 40 feet from the basket.
That's maturity, yeah. He's improved in that area.
It's also playing loose. It's his job. Play loose. Okay, I'm not looking over my shoulder. When's Kyan coming in?
That's a good point, yeah.
Yeah, and by the way, sidebar very quickly, to Kyan's credit, Seth named 4 players after the game Saturday in Charlottesville that spoke out at halftime. One of them was Kyan.
It was Zayden High was one of them too, wasn't it?
Zayden High, James Brown, who didn't even dress. So
the 3 guys you would not have picked to say anything at halftime, are the guys who said something at halftime.
The 4 players he mentioned combined for 7 points in the game. That is an indication that there's a lot of good stuff behind the scenes here. Like, this is a legitimate 100%. Group.
And everybody's on the same page. Everybody wants to win. Yeah.
I've seen bickering. I saw Kyan get all over, but Luka and stuff like that. That happens when you're in a competitive team. Like in football, and people are talking about fights in the program. And when I was in high school playing football, we had fights almost every day in practice in August.
That's what you want because it shows you care.
You're a coach, you want that.
Yeah.
You want that.
Yeah.
You could fight some guy and then go out and have a soda with him later.
Yeah, it shows you care. Yeah, it shows that competitiveness that you care, that you want to do well. Yeah. That's what you want. That passing team.
And a lot of that bickering out west, they saw it on film. They learned. Well, okay, you don't want your teammate getting all on you like that, but why did he do it? So the defensive mistake that Luka made when Kyan got on him, this was in Palo Alto. Now, Luka's not going to win any defensive awards, but I don't think he made that mistake last week.
Again, yeah, growth, improvement. And that's because of that. If you don't get pointed out on things and there's not attention to detail like that and a want to get better and, hey, we cannot let this happen. And that accountability is the word I'm looking for. No good team. There's never been a good team that lacks accountability. Accountability has to be just a mainstay in a really good team. So it's good to see stuff like that. It's good to see guys stepping up and speaking out that you wouldn't necessarily expect. I would almost rather have that than just if you would have told me, yeah, it was Caleb and Henry and, Seth. I would be like, yeah, okay, yeah, could have told you that.
Well, and remember what Hubert said after Notre Dame? Caleb wanted to address the team.
Yeah.
So, no, it was Caleb wanted to address the team. Hubert, the last 2 games, has done some really positive things about letting guys speak. And there are things to criticize about Hubert, and there are plenty of things that need to be praised and brought up equally. A lot of people right now want to dog Hubert and all that kind of stuff. I get it. We've been critical, but you have to be completely objective about this as well. And I think that his communication over the last week and allowing other guys to speak even more, and this is based on what we're hearing from the kids, right? I mean, it may have been going on a lot before, we just didn't know about it, but they're talking about it, which means it's impactful. When a player brings it up on their own, that means that there was an impact. With guys speaking up and with Caleb having a chance to address the team on his own, which Hubert actually told us about. I think those are all good things. The flexibility of Hubert, the increased flexibility, I guess I should say, has been something we've seen just in the last couple of weeks as well, which is a positive. And I know that a lot of people had their elephant in the room conversations last week, and they were legitimate and justified given that point in time. But I would say this is a really good week they've come off of. And it's not just the ball going to the basket. And it's not just going in transition and getting a big run the court and getting a dunk in transition. It's a lot more stuff, which is why going into this weekend and the Syracuse game, all the little intangibles that allow you to be that and they make it easier for you to be that club on the floor need to be there. Like whatever the messaging is inside McCamish Pavilion before the team takes the court all 3 times. They have their shoot around and their stuff that they do. Then they go back, they run out and do the warm-ups. They go back and they come out one final time. Every one of those discussions has to be non-forced Doesn't have to be forced at all. Like sometimes teams have. It needs to be free flowing. And if anybody wants to speak up, they can speak up. I mean, if Elijah Davis wants to address the team and get them all hyped up, then that's got to happen, because I think that would be normal and natural for this group. So they have a lot of guys who could talk, and they have a lot of guys who could feel their oats. And I think that that's a very, very positive thing, and that needs to be who they are, and not even pre-planned. Let it be very organic. There seems to be an organic nature to some of this, and I think that's healthy when you're doing organic things like this in late January. I don't want to overanalyze it. I don't want to make it out to be more than it really is, but having been around a lot of teams in my life, not just at North Carolina, but other schools, the ones that are communicating well, the ones that have the chemistry and like each other, have a tendency, and the ones that chatter more have a tendency to continue growing and developing and are less likely to go off the rails.
Player-led. Mac Brown used to talk about it all the time. Best teams are player-led. And I think it applies in basketball too. It shouldn't be the head coach going in there having to give you a rollicking all the time. It should be players.
Because they don't hear it. If the head coach has to do it a lot, they don't hear it.
You don't hear it, yeah, because he's having to do it because it's not coming from anywhere else. Yeah, I mean, these are high-level athletes.
We've all experienced that in life. If you have a boss that nags.
Yeah.
You can work in a warehouse, and you're supposed to put the boxes right here like that, not like that. And the guy's getting all on you for it. And you look at it, you're like, okay, you just nudge it over and he makes a federal case out of it. You're not going to hear him after a while. You're not going to like being there.
Tune it out, yeah.
Which is why allowing other voices to speak is hugely important, because then it makes Hubert's words more impactful.
1,000%. You're absolutely right. One of the guys that's obviously a big time player for North Carolina is Caleb Wilson. We've talked about it a little bit in here, and just wanted to just hone in on a little bit more of his numbers and some of the stuff that in a lot of ways is kind of going on under the radar. I almost feel like he's not being talked about enough, because it's like you're just so used to him being so good for North Carolina that after a while you talk about all the other problems Carolina has, and this guy needs to play better. And what about this guy? It's like Caleb Wilson just keeps doing his thing, and like I said, it's almost going under the radar sometimes. But averaging 19.9 points or 20 points a game, essentially 10.1 rebounds, or averaging a double-double right now, shooting 59% from the floor as well. He's been absolutely fantastic for the Tar Heels during his true freshman season. And I'm going to read some numbers off. You put a piece out about this on our website as well, but he scored in double figures in all 20 games this season, which ties Rashad McCance's UNC freshman record. He has 14 career 20-plus point games already, ties Tyler Hansbrough's UNC freshman record. He's the first UNC freshman ever to score 20-plus points in 6 consecutive games. And as I mentioned, he's averaging 19.9 points per game, which is on pace to set the UNC freshman scoring record. AJ, the only guy I can compare him to is Tyler Hansbrough, at least in my lifetime. My lifetime is what I'm speaking on. It is Tyler Hansbrough in terms of the impact he had as a freshman. I know Harrison Barnes was really good as a true freshman. There's some other guys you can throw in there, but statistically and numbers wise, it's kind of Caleb Wilson and Tyler Hansbrough, and McCants you could throw in there as well, even though we're not allowed to talk about him anymore, according to Carolina fans, and I understand why. But Hansbrough is the main guy that kind of pops to mind there. And I remember I've said this story before, but I was actually at Hansbrough's, I think it was early 06 in Georgia Tech when he set the UNC, I guess it was the ACC freshman scoring record at the time. I was actually at that game. I'll never forget being there. But I draw comparisons with him all the time. And there's so many things he does in just games. And I've caught myself doing this even more recently, especially when Carolina was struggling, because you notice the better players even more when other guys are really struggling, where Caleb Wilson just makes moves. And I'm just like, in my head, and I don't always say it out loud, but I'm just like, wow, man, that was really good. That was really impressive. I haven't seen a Carolina player really do that in a long time. Like I said, the comparisons with Hansbrough and just how good he was is the only guy in a lot of ways I can compare him to. And that's, again, just in my lifetime. I was born in 95. So talk to me a little bit about the season he's having. I know there's other stats and facts you can throw out, but God, man, he's just, like I said, it's almost going under the radar in some ways, even though he's still being talked about, of how good he's been. He's on another level to most Carolina freshmen we've seen.
You got to throw Antoine Jamison in there.
Yeah, and even some of his manner and some of the stuff he does reminds me of Jamison. It's even like Vince Carter at times, the way he dunks the ball. I know Vince Carter could jump out of the gym, but like there's a lot of guys you can compare him to in that realm.
Okay, let's have some fun for a minute, and people could think, oh my gosh, AJ's taking crazy pills again. His hang time on his turnaround jumper, especially or just a jump shot in the lane area, got a little Rasheed Wallace in there.
Yep.
She'd had that little extra hang, right? Mm-hmm. That baseline, I'm going outside of Carolina for a minute. That turnaround baseline jumper is a spitting image of unbiased, man.
Yeah,
I saw
I
Len
can
play
see
in
you.
person.
Yeah, you're a DC guy,
An
Maryland
image.
guy. Yeah.
But Len, I could argue that as far as seeing guys in person, Len's the best ACC player I ever saw in person. I could definitely make that argument. I'm not saying I will. There is some Marvin Williams in him.
1,000% Marvin Williams. I don't know how I didn't say that. You're 100%
put back
right.
ability, and Marvin would go straight to the basket. I mean,
the jumping ability too.
Just he's got some of that knack that Marvin had. And we saw obviously the great putback at the Duke game was a knack play. He had a knack for doing things like that. Don't really see a lot of Harrison Barnes in his game.
Different
kind of game. But, Harrison had 41 as a freshman against Clemson in the ACC tournament.
Yep.
Which was
Greensboro, right?
Greensboro, yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Greensboro. It was Greensboro. And that was also one of the great baseline performances. Like, he was incredible on the baseline that night. And I think that Caleb can be a great baseline player. He can be a great player anywhere, honestly. Hit a couple threes. He's been shooting a couple threes lately. I watch him shoot before games. He's got a nice shot. It's going to come over time, and he's feeling a little more comfortable lately. He's attempted a few, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think if he feels like it's a good shot, then he should be able to take that shot. I think he's earned that. But he's also very Caleb Wilson-like, where he's not super polished yet. Like, some of those other guys didn't have those sort of out of control body sequences like he has. And I say this as a compliment.
Yeah.
Because his ceiling might be higher than all of them. And just, you think about the travel he had at UVA and early in the second half, I think it was, where he's kind of backing the defender. And it's like, if he's backing me and I just take a few quick steps back, and he's going to fall over and travel, lose the ball, because the way he does, he's not great at that yet, but he's still effective because he could turn and score, and he's got amazing fingertips. The ball near the basket just comes off his fingertips so beautifully, almost like it's ordained. And he's still able to score and look pretty doing it when he's got an awkward move. So in time, that awkwardness is not going to be awkward anymore. It's not going to be there. And he's just going to be a straight up killer down there.
Yeah, the potential. I mean, he's nowhere near the finished product. Yeah, he's
not even close. He's going to destroy people down the road.
Yeah.
He's going to be a guy that hits 40 every once in a while in the NBA.
1,000%. Yeah, he's got that potential. There's no doubt.
And I think that there's a 40-point game in him now. I think that if the other guys are playing well, and you don't have to go to him just to get a shot off, that's the night he goes for 40. And there's a connection to everybody else, and everybody has to be guarded so he's not doubled like crazy. And that's the night he goes for 40, and it might be a night where they really need him to go for 40 in the end, because they're playing a team that's very difficult to stop. Both clubs are playing exceptionally high level offensively, and you go to Caleb. Jarin gets you a bucket. Go to Caleb. Henry gets you a bucket. Caleb, a foul, actually hits the free throw. Later steps out, hits a three, gets in transition a couple times, a couple of baseline moves, a couple of putbacks, and you're climbing toward 40. I think that that's in him at some point this year. Would not surprise me if he did that against any of the opponents that they have coming up. I think that's brewing, to be honest with you. And I think he's on a team where they would be fine with him doing that. Like, Tyler got 40 against Georgia Tech. I covered a game at NC State that night, and I'll never forget. I think that was a 7:00 game, and the NC State one may have been an 8:00 game. I remember going in the press room. I believe it was a halftime, and all everyone was talking about was Hansbrough went for 40 tonight.
Yeah,
unreal.
Dude, it was unbelievable. Yeah,
just unreal. Went for 40. I think he had like a steal at midcourt and a dunk and stuff like that.
He was so good that game.
Anybody wanted to talk about. And that was a really good NC State team that year. It was for a while, and I think that's the one that ended up getting Herb fired. Herb was fired, by the way. I know NC State fan likes to think Herb walked out on him. That wasn't true. He was told, "You better go."
He's a mutual parting of ways.
Yeah, the pitchforks are coming. So Caleb really is that guy. There's an interesting thread on our board about the piece that I wrote where people were kind of saying, look, Tyler's still the greatest freshman. And I'll go there with that. And we got to mention Phil Ford. Not a lot of our listeners saw Phil Ford play, but Phil was the first great freshman because that's when freshmen started being allowed to be played. They weren't even allowed to play for a while. Mm-hmm. Freshmen had to play on the freshman team. And there were times where people used to joke that Carolina's freshman team in those Dean Smith years would have been a top 10 team, and they couldn't even play.
You can make a case for it, yeah.
Yeah. Roy will tell you some stories about that, which Roy played on the freshman team.
Yeah.
When he was there. So I love watching this kid play. I love watching him compete. He's got that I'm not gonna say foot on throat, but he's got that kind of approach. I don't think it's BS when he says he finds things to get pissed off about. He's not trying to be MJ. He's just being Caleb, and it just happens to be something that MJ had to. You know, MJ didn't write the book on everything, and enjoy them while you have them.
Yeah, I mean, he's one and done as it gets. I don't think anybody's going to argue that. And I mean, he leads ACC in double doubles, 11, ranks second in rebounds per game, as we talked about. And even at ACC play, he's averaging 20.3 points a game, a little bit more, a little bit less rebounds, 8.6, 3.7 assists, so nearly one more assist than he averages on the season at 2.8. So, I mean, first Tar Heel ever with 23 points, 12 rebounds, 3 blocks, and 4 steals in a game. There's so many other things I could chatter off. But
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Let me jump in. I want to jump in before you transition to the next topic. Why do you think he's not getting mentioned that much lately?
You mean by like Carolina fans or just everybody?
Just in general, because I think it's in general, because I watch a lot of college basketball.
Yeah.
I check out what Field of 68 is really good, by the way. People should check them out. Jeff Goodman knows his stuff. I work with Jeff at Fox Sports. He knows his stuff. They got John Henson on there. Tyler's on there, by the way. Terrence Oglesby is fantastic. Doster knows his stuff. I mean, there's a lot of people need to pay attention to that stuff. And they talk about a lot of things. And I haven't seen as much Caleb Wilson stuff there lately. Not that I've been seeking it out with a purpose, but I haven't seen it as much. And you brought it up. I'm just kind of curious why you think maybe he's not getting as much chatter. And Carolina fans that are watching, listening right now, if you think that's so, why do you think maybe he's not getting talked about as much?
You know what? I think it's just a recency thing with North Carolina. I think when you look at a lot of the chatter about North Carolina the last few weeks has been, and rightly so, has been, are they falling off? You know, is Hubert on the hot seat because of the West Coast trip and struggling out there? And, they at one point had won 1 and out of 4. Like, I think a lot of that has dominated the conversation to where when Carolina, I feel like if and when they start winning again, let's say they go on a little bit of a roll, win 3-4 in a row, and Caleb continues to have these big games, I think the conversation and chatter with him will pick up more. So I just think it's that really, man, because there was a lot of chatter about Caleb early in the year when Carolina was kind of rolling. But I think as soon as things go off the rails a little bit with North Carolina, the conversation, and rightly so, I don't disagree with it, immediately flips to Hubert Davis.
Yeah.
And I think that just ends up dominating the conversations about North Carolina. And then, too, Carolina's had other problems. It's like Caleb Wilson has been the steady guy throughout the year where you kind of can pencil him in for what he's going to get. Henry's kind of right behind him there, too. But it's like when Carolina's struggling, or even not, it's like the point guard comes into conversation and the other guys, well, what does Luka do? Like, I feel like it's usually when they're struggling, the conversation shifts away from Caleb. So I think if they go on a little bit of a streak, like I said a second ago, I think the conversation will shift back to Caleb. And it should, because he's having just an absolutely phenomenal year. And the last thing I'll say about him, too, I have to throw this in there. David, I did a podcast with David a few weeks ago, and he made a great point that I noticed when I'm watching him, but I hadn't been able to articulate it. And me and my dad have got a running joke now. But David basically said the way he plays, it's like, I'm paraphrasing for him, it's like his bones bend. And me and my dad call him Gumby now, because it's just like he makes these incredible moves on the baseline, especially when he posts a guy up and he turns and he like jumps off 1 foot. He jumps like 10 feet. And you're like, how did you do that? He like bends around defenders. Like, he's, again, every time I watch him, it's like there's a lot of times where he makes a basket or makes a move where in my head, I literally am like, wow, that was really good. Like, and sometimes I outwardly say it, but it's like you almost get used to how good he is the more you watch him. But yeah, it's almost like his bones are bendable, man. I don't know. It's like some of it's is grinding and working on his game. But let's not make mistakes, man. Some of it's just God-given talent and ability, too, that he can just do stuff that especially the way he contorts his body, that I've just rarely seen
That kind of
basketball players, much less athletes, do. It's incredible, really.
That plays in what I was saying earlier too. In time, a lot of those moves we made just with straight ball.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the skill ball, like refined stuff that will come. I think you make great points. Part of it also is the freshman class nationally is incredible.
Yeah, Cameron Boozer's right down the road too.
The Darren Peterson, will he play? Won't he play? What's his family saying? Bill Self said this again. That's constantly in the news. It's been impossible to ignore AJ DeBanza the last couple of weeks. Yeah. He's been and Cameron Boozer. I'm a voter for the ACC for the weekly stuff, and I don't see Caleb's name very often at all in the player of the week. It's in the freshman
which is insane.
But it's just like Cameron Boozer every week.
Yeah.
And and SMU's had a few guys. BJ Edwards, I think it was last week, I voted for him. And I voted for Boozer for freshman of the week. It's just someone flares up in the league and has an amazing week, or it's Boozer doing Boozer things, and every once in a while Caleb. So I think that's part of it. The other thing too is that people were so enamored by the dunks in November and the dunk count. Everyone was counting his dunks. And the dunks have tapered off some because they're playing much better teams, obviously, and he's having to find different ways to score, which I think he's showing a tremendous amount of growth in his game, by the way. But the dunks haven't been there as much, and we all love highlights. We all love the theatrical stuff. If you spent the first 5 weeks of the season and you're in the ESPN Sports Center and you're going to show Caleb Wilson dunks, and then you cruise to a Carolina game and he doesn't get one, or he has one in the open court and it's a pretty standard dunk, well, then there's no highlight. Mm-hmm. You don't want to, if you feast on Caleb Wilson dunks in traffic, you're not going to then run a game where, hey, there's a 15-footer. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So he's not doing as much highlight reel stuff. He's playing damn good basketball, but that's what the low-hanging fruit crowd looks for. So the stuff that enamored them early, he's not doing as much of now from the low-hanging fruit standpoint. So I think that's part of it also. But he's averaging 3.8 assists a game in ACC play.
It's yeah.
Now, come on. That's unbelievable.
It's just like that's the cherry on top of the icing on top of the cake. You didn't even need that, really.
and that's why he will challenge. If he continues, he will challenge Tyler as the best freshman in Carolina history, in my opinion.
I agree.
Because of the variety of his game, but we're watching him get better every week. Mm-hmm. He finds ways to score. He's avoiding foul trouble. Some people are saying, he doesn't defend. Look, there are times where he doesn't bust down the court. There are times he doesn't close out super hard. He's also, 19, just turned 19? He's so early still in his process of becoming whatever he's going to become. Stuff will come with it. Mm-hmm. He's so good that, okay, nobody is maximum 100% at all times. It's humanly impossible.
No.
And when a guy like him has a time where he doesn't close out, the whole world sees it and the whole world wants to focus on it. But enjoy him while you can. He's an absolute treasure of a player. He's really great dealing with after a game. He's honest. He's articulate. He's smart. He's thoughtful. He cares about the team. He wants to win. When they play well and other guys are doing stuff, you could see it in his body language and in his face that it's almost as if he did it. And that's one of the highest compliments I can pay an extremely talented and productive 19-year-old.
No doubt. Yeah, you think that's a great way to end our segment on Caleb, because you are right. He's a joy to watch, and he's, again, even more of a good interview and a really interesting and nice kid off the court too, which is you don't see that often. It's usually one or the other, it feels like. But yeah, you get the best of both.
Very quickly on that, he was asked about the call Hubert made to go to him with less than a minute left when they needed a bucket in Charlottesville. They're up 2. He scored, and they went up 4 with 31 seconds left. And he says and he was asked about it. His first words were, "It was a smart call."
Yeah. I love it. That's such a Caleb line, too. It is, man. That's just it's such.
But then he went on to talk about, hey, my teammates could score too, and because they're showing that they can score, makes it easier for me to score.
Exactly.
So he's fully aware of everything.
Yeah, he's just uber aware. Yeah, he's just super mature kid for his age. There's no doubt about it. And yeah, he's going to be making a lot of money at the next level. He's already making some good money in Carolina. Don't get it twisted, but he's making even better money at the NBA level for sure.
2, 3, 4.
Exactly, man. It's gonna be nice. I'll be envious of that. Let's talk about Jarin, then we'll wrap it up with just a little bit of Dean Dome chatter. Again, I'm going to let you take over this piece because I haven't even seen your odds and ends piece right now. But I'll start it off with this just to give a little bit I'll give a little bit of a just lay the walkway for you a little bit, just to maybe lead into what you're going to talk about here with Jarin Stevenson in particular. This is just a very small sample size, obviously coming off a big 17-point performance, all coming in the last 12:42 of the Virginia game. But looking at his last two games, AJ, 16 minutes in both. He shot 8 for 12 combined in those games from the floor, 4 for 6 from three. And he's got a combined, let's see if I can do math, 25 points in the last two games. So that's the small context I'll provide about Jarin Stevenson. I'll kick it to you. Talk to us a little bit about Jarin and maybe some of the recent trends or positive things that he's been showing.
Forgive me as I put the spectacles on.
I got to pull.
I'm reading from my odds and ends. I'll read
I was trying to find an admin, but it's obviously not there yet.
I haven't finished it yet. I got a few other things.
Gotcha. I figured.
Before I stick it in admin. So remember he went a month without hitting a three?
Yep.
5 games, 1 month during December. Well, he had a 9-game stretch from starting with St. Bonaventure through Florida State, where he was 2 for 17 from three. Okay. That was after Navy, beginning with St. Bonaventure down in Florida. He was 2 for 17 from three during that stretch, and he averaged 5.1 points a game. In the 6 games since, he's 8 for 14 from three, and he's averaging 8.7 points a game. And keep in mind, this includes an 11-minute performance at Cal in which he did not score. So he's had multiple threes in 3 of the last 6 games, and he's had a 16-point game at SMU and a 17-point game at Virginia in this 6-game span. Mm-hmm. So the two best teams they played during this 6-game stretch on the road, he went for 16 and then went for 17. So what we're seeing is a guy who is getting more comfortable. I think he's getting more comfortable playing the 4 and the 5 some. I think he needs to play mostly the 4 and the 5 personally. But if he can hit a three, then suddenly he can handle playing the 3 some because he has to be guarded more. But that wasn't what he did the other day. He did all kinds of stuff the other day. Running the floor, had a beautiful baseline cut, got a pass, went up and dunked. We saw some more authority from him. He was more authoritative out there. We saw some more demonstrative body language from him, which I thought was really important because he's so low-key and reserved and just such a quiet, nice guy. I mean, he is the quintessential help an old lady across the street kind of guy. So you need to see some of that authoritativeness and demonstrative body language after making big plays. And then the guy that drew the charge. He was proudest of drawing that charge. When I asked him about that, I mean, his smile was so big, it couldn't get any bigger. It stretched the width of his face. And I thought that was great. Everybody has confidence growing sequences in life, no matter how old you are. I think that was one for him. And his teammates loved it. They showered him with Gatorade. And I think that was a great moment for this team. But he's shown now 8 for 14 in the last 6. He's had 3 different games with multiple threes, not just the 2 bigger, higher scoring games. That's a very, very positive sign because they were getting nothing from him for a while.
No.
And I just don't think the 3 was the right place for him, like with all of his minutes. And then Seth comes back. He starts playing the 4 and the 5 some. I think he's gotten more used to that. I think he's getting better with the physicality. So if they can get flare-ups every couple of games from Jarin moving forward, and then if there's a baseline of some kind of solid production and play in which he has to be defended, has to be honored by the opponent, he makes them better. And maybe we're starting to see the guy they thought they were going to get all along.
Yeah, I agree. You look at his game log, it's funny because he's like 15 against Radford, and then he has 11 against Navy, and then he goes, pretty much over a month without scoring in double figures, and he has 16 at SMU, and then he goes a few more 4 games without scoring in double figures, and he has this huge second half against UVA. So it's like there's these flare-ups. I think the next step for him, and obviously he would like that, and Carolina fans would love this, is just being a little bit more consistent. You don't need him to score 17 points in 12 minutes and 42 seconds of a game necessarily. That'd be great if you could get it. but just being a little bit more of a consistent offensive threat and continue to be a good defender, because I do think he offers a lot of good things on the defensive end at times as well. So yeah, I think that, as you've talked about
100%.
too, the consistency thing is the next step with him
But
and his growth and development.
Other than the other day with Henry, just wasn't his day. You pretty much know the range, high end range you're going to get from Caleb and Henry, right?
Yeah.
But then after that, I think Luka's been settling in some.
He feels more comfortable. He looks more comfortable.
Looks more settled, and he looks like he's catching up to the pace of the game as well. If you're in that 8 to 11 range from him that you can pencil in, and you're in the 12 to 14 range with Seth, you can pencil in. And Seth's not forcing as much stuff of late, which is another step forward for this team. If you've got something you could pencil in from those four, a minimum, and it's not bad, and you can carry that somewhere, then you get the flare-ups to add on top of it. So if you get the Jarin flare-up every few games, and you get a Powell flare-up every few games, we don't know what Jaden Young is going to be. But then the Derek Dixon, who's actually been scoring some because he can score, maybe you could pencil a minimum from him in, let's say, the 7-point range with 4 or 5 assists and only 1 turnover. If you could start penciling in some stuff and then add a flare-up from somebody to that, that's how you become a damn good team.
Fantastic.
And that's how you become a team that could go into any venue against anybody and win on a given night, because that might be the night you get Jaren's flare-up. That might be the night you get Jonathan Powell's flare-up, or whatever the case may be. And the other guys are giving you a baseline performance, and you get a flare-up or two, suddenly you're winning big games. I think that's the recipe moving forward. I don't know if you're going to get that. You're not going to get that every night from Jaren.
No, you don't even need, like you say, you don't even really need it. It'd be great if you can get it, but you don't necessarily need that every night. You know what I mean?
They needed it in Charlottesville.
Yeah, and they got it, which is great.
And they needed it and then some in SMU. They needed more of it. That was and SMU was a game in which some of the point guard issues were just on fire.
Yeah.
And they flared up in a big way, and that's part of what the issue was there. They think that they may have settled that.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're settled there are less needed flare-ups, fewer needed flare-ups.
Yeah.
But Jaren's a flare-up guy. And let's remember, if you're an Alabama fan, or if you're just a college basketball fan, and you remember the regional final 2 years ago out west, he flared up against Clemson, and that's why they got to the Final Four.
100%. 100%. Yeah, you'll take it, man. Flare-ups, especially on the road against really good teams when you need it, is absolutely a fantastic recipe for success moving forward. So hopefully it doesn't always have to be Jaren, but hopefully, some guys coming off the bench, more of the guys that are in maybe role players, quote unquote, can continue to step up, because you need it, man. Especially in this league, it's a good league. You got to show up every night and be ready to play. So, and obviously it becomes even more important when you get in the postseason too. So we'll see how that thing kind of continues moving forward. We'll wrap it up with this, AJ. Quick conversation. Dean Smith Center, been a massive, the renovation or build a new arena. It's just been a massive topic of conversation the last few weeks, especially when the, Hansborough video came out and the Roy Williams video came out. There's a Twitter page for it now, renovating the Smith Center. And I get all that. And I completely understand the nostalgia and history and why a lot of people want to keep that arena. But can you give us any kind of update? I know you've put it on, if you've been on our boards or on our website for months now, you've kind of known what the plan is behind the scenes, or at least what we've heard about how, what the future might be of the Smith Center and the redevelopment more in particular. But I mean, we could even talk opinions on here if we want, but I don't necessarily think we need to really get into that. But what kind of info? Is it just kind of the same thing you've been hearing is what you're still hearing about what might happen with the Smith Center?
Yeah, and since you mentioned opinion, people are going to want us to give it. I'm in the middle on this. I hate to sound political, but
Sitting on the fence, AJ? Sitting on the fence a little bit?
If you are a keep the Dean Dome and renovate it guy, I'm going to nod my head with everything you have to say.
And I completely agree.
If you're build a new facility at Carolina North and you outline all the reasons why, I'm going to nod my head and agree with everything.
Yeah, it's like you can completely understand both viewpoints.
I think for all the emotion involved here, Carolina's in a great situation.
Mm-hmm.
So at the very minimum, you play in a revamped Dean Dome, which is incredible. I've covered a college basketball game in 86 different venues in my career. I've covered Carolina in 76 different venues. So I've got a fair idea of what a unique basketball arena is. In the Dean Dome, there's nothing like it. Mm-hmm. Thompson Bowling at Tennessee was a little bit like it, but I was in there after the renovation, and they have all those suites on that one side. There's nothing else. Rupp is not really like the Dean Dome.
Yeah, you were disappointed.
Like,
You were pretty critical of Rupp. It was not that nice. You were kind of like,
but their circumstances are different. You know, it's part of
the
the
history is great
downtown.
Yeah.
The history is great. I'm not a big fan of Rupp. But the Dean Dome, I do like the Dean Dome a lot, and it's very unique in the fact it's like a massive bandbox arena. You think of those old bandbox arenas like in the Northeast and stuff, or way back when everywhere, and where the fans are kind of on top of you. Now, they're not entirely on top of you because there's almost 22,000 seats, but it's a massive bandbox arena. And I don't think that even if you sit up top, and we're pretty close to up top in the media, I don't have a problem sitting up there watching the game. I see everything. I'm perfectly. I know at first we all complain and stuff because media complains. We do that they were moving us up there, but I don't mind. I get to see everything develop. I'd like sitting up there. In fact, Dave Hanner sits in front of us. Like in the state, there was a bunch of former Carolina people that were there a couple times at games last year and a couple times this year. You know, dignitaries, damn it, and they're sitting up there too, because then they could see the game. So. I love the history behind it. I love the passion and the emotion that Roy and Tyler exhibited in those videos. I know that when you watch them, how could you possibly think of playing somewhere else? And then you turn your head to the guy who's going to lay out why they need to have a new arena. You're like, it makes total sense. I'm with that too.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of right down the middle on it. I like both ideas. I support both. I think Carolina fans are going to win no matter what. I do understand the financial aspect of a new facility because I was on John Henson's show and John mentioned that, hey, when I was in school, we were like number one in branding. Now Carolina's, the value of the athletic department has dropped significantly, or not so much drop, everyone else just passed it by.
Yeah, which is
and Carolina needs to get back there, and the funds, the money they will generate with a new facility and some other ideas I've heard. Hey, if you're going to build this, why not build that? That kind of thing. I think that there's some broad thinking that is not the worst. They're not the worst ideas. If you want to talk about just branching out and being New Carolina and moving forward with a scenario that could generate a ton of revenue. You look at Rutgers, what's happening with their athletic department, and they're in a Big Ten getting all that money and they still can't keep up because you have to spend. You can't just live off of the TV revenue. Nobody can do that anymore. I think we're going to see some schools and some of the other SEC and maybe even more Big Ten, like Mississippi State or somebody, come out and say, man, we're struggling too. We can't keep up. There are some schools in the ACC that are going to struggle keeping up. Miami showed the blueprint. Hey, FSU, Clemson, you want to make SEC money? Go to the title game. That's what they did. And they get to keep all that cash. So Carolina has to take care of itself in the future, has to make revenue. I understand why all that new stuff would make a lot of sense. But there's also a blueprint, some people believe, where you can do that and stay in the Dean Dome. And if it makes you unique, it makes you unique. I'm not going to get into the whole, well, Kansas can stay at Fogg, Duke can stay at Cameron, Indiana can stay at Assembly Hall and all that stuff. I don't know the particulars about all those situations, so I really can't. I nod to them and say, great. I hope they always stay in those places. But Carolina's got a different situation that it's dealing with the Dean Dome, and I think that's why some very important people want a new building. But man, that emotion's hard to get by.
Yeah.
And you walk in there and you see it, and I'm thinking, like, you better build this thing big enough that you can't change the laundry. You can't decide and say, you know what, we're just going to have a couple of big banners with the names listed. You can't do that. You have to do it the way it is. You must do it. So you can't go in there and say, well, we're only going to go 16,000 seats, so the arena is for 16,000 and not 22. And suddenly you have to really revamp the arrangement of the banners and the jerseys and all that stuff. I don't think you can do that. I don't think you can skimp on it. I personally think that if they do the new thing, that it should be somewhat a replica of the Smith Center. You could scale the seating down some, but it should be somewhat of a replica because the arrangement of all that stuff hanging up there is perfection. It's pristine. Mm-hmm. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I've talked to people from other programs just recently out on the West Coast, and they said, man, our guys were more excited to go in there and just look around that place in any place they've ever been.
Mm-hmm.
That stuff matters. It carries and it feeds the emotional component of what drives Carolina fans. It's a very emotional fan base. I know a lot of Carolina fans that still cry when they lose in the NCAA tournament. I don't think every fan base does that. So these are all factors at play.
Yeah. I mean, I get both sides. I mean, I completely agree with you on that. If you're asking me, like, going to my head, what would I do? I would build a new arena. I mean, that's just what I would do. I understand it. It's stepping into the new Carolina, stepping into kind of moving the university forward, building something brand new. I love the Smith Center. I've been there so many times. I have so many great memories in the Smith Center back before I even started in this job. I completely understand the emotional aspect of it. I mean, like I said, I have the same thing with Keenan. I've been going to Keenan Stadium for 20 years. My dad's had season tickets for 15 plus years. Like, I've been going to Keenan my whole life. I'm 30 years old, basically. So, I've been going to Keenan for, over half of my life. So I get it with that as well. And the Smith Center, I haven't been as many times to Smith Center, but I've been tons and tons of times as well. But I always compare it to this too, AJ. I think the number one thing is people don't want something off campus. I get that. But the fact of the matter is, I mean, it's a little bit off campus. It wouldn't technically be off campus with kind of Carolina North that they're trying to do. But it is 1.5 miles from Franklin Street. If you want to just do Raising Cane's on Franklin Street, the heart of Franklin Street, 1.5 miles to the Smith Center, 1.7 miles to where the new location would be. It's not that really big of a difference, despite the fact that it's a little bit more off campus, at least in the current layout of the school. So I get that, but there's not a massive difference in terms of like the hub of Chapel Hill compared to where the stadium would be. But for me, I've used this analogy a few times. I've been to the Spectrum Center many a times in my life, and they just spent $250, $300 million renovating that place. I went to a game in December to watch the Hornets play. And the number one difference between the Smith Center and a more modern day arena is the suites, for one. The concourse is huge. It's a lot bigger. There's more room to do stuff. There's more things in the arena to do. But the biggest thing is comfort. The Smith Center is tight. It's a tight squeeze sitting there. And that's fine. And that's great. And some people love that. And that creates the fantastic, unbelievable, unmatched atmosphere that you get at tons of games, in particular the Duke game, which is just unrivaled to any other. But the Smith Center was built in the 80s. It's an older arena. It is not necessarily, especially if you go to a place like the Smith Center, it's not a modern day arena with modern day amenities. And that, for me, if you're just asking me which one would I prefer, putting all the emotional stuff to the side, I would choose the new arena most of the time. So I think a lot of the reasoning with staying in the Smith Center comes from an emotional standpoint. And that is completely understandable and completely reasonable and right in a lot of ways when you just consider the history of that place. But I do agree with you. If you're going to build a new one, I would model it after the Smith Center. It would have the same, very similar name. It would still be Roy Williams Court, and the history and the banners would still be hanging up there. It would be a different arena, but you would still feel the history and be able to see the history inside of the place. I just think with where we're at, with the Smith Center being as old as it is now, I just think it makes more sense to build a new arena. And then, as we've heard too, maybe having things around it, retail, restaurants, being kind of a hub where you can hang out. And two, I think it'd be a lot easier to get in and out of, a lot easier to find parking too, a lot easier to get in and out of the arena, especially for a 7 p.m. weekday game when people are getting off work and, man, I got to drive to Chapel Hill and then find parking. It's going to take me forever to get in there. Parking's a little tricky. If I don't park in the Bulls lot, where am I going to go? What time am I going to get to the arena? I think you could simplify that as well over there, especially with it being in closer proximity to the main interstate over there too. So I get both sides for sure. And again, if you could sit here and give me an argument for 10 minutes of why you should keep it in the Smith Center, and I would agree with most of the stuff you said. It's just my preference, me personally, I would build the new arena. And I think it just makes a little bit more sense in building the new arena than it does maybe trying to renovate the Smith Center. And then maybe in another 10, 15 years, are you having the same conversation as to now of like, well, what do we do with it now? I don't know. I just think building a new one makes a little bit more sense in my opinion.
I'd like to know from those who are watching and listening.
Yeah, get involved in the comments.
Yeah, sure. 100%. Not just what you think about, keep it or build a new one. I want to be more specific here. How many of you had tickets or had an opportunity or desire to go to a Carolina basketball game and chose not to because the traffic, because of parking, and because of the concourse?
Especially for a weekday game, like a 7 o'clock weekday game.
And especially the concourse. A lot of talk about the concourse. I get it because, where we sit, I got to walk through the crowd after the game to get to the stairs to go downstairs.
It's tight, man.
It's really hard.
It's tight.
I kind of have my laptop up here because I'm trying to hey, part the C just so I can get down there fast. I'm not saying it's because we got a lot of people that get through there. So people they're leaving the game. They're not really in a rush or anything like that. And we're trying to get through there. And there are a lot of places that are like that where you have to deal going through fans and stuff like that. And that's what I get to experience, the concourse being tight.
Yeah.
I don't really get to experience it any other time. So I'm trying to get there at the end of the game. So I get that, but I'd like to know if anybody ever decided not to go to a game because of concourse.
I think there's probably a decent amount of
parking,
people,
because of traffic. Yeah. I'd like to know.
You know, another thing too I'll throw into is just the revenue. We've talked ad nauseum. People, Carolina fans know this, the lack of revenue they make because of like the lifelong season ticket holders for the Smith Center. And not only that, AJ, but not as many concourse amenities. You've also got, you know, if you had more of a hub around the stadium, you could generate more revenue through that. And I mean, there's so many other ways you could be a revenue generator, especially in a world of college athletics right now where revenue generating is the number one thing. Money's always been the thing, but it is even more important now for college sports. So Carolina's not even making as much revenue as they could from basketball games in the Smith Center than they would maybe at a new arena too. So, I mean, that has to play a factor. I know a lot of emotional fans who want to stay in the Smith Center don't want to hear that, but in the current state of college athletics, man, it is all about the money. It just is. So it's either you kind of embrace it or you can get left behind a little bit.
It is, but there's something special about Fog and Cameron.
And see, you got me right back on it. I'm like, I get it. Yeah.
I've been in Pauley Pavilion, but I've never covered a game there. But I've covered games in Assembly Hall. I've covered ton of games at Cameron. I've covered games in Rupp. I've covered games in Fog Allen Fieldhouse. I've covered games in a lot of special places. And staying there and being there and really being the place where the ghosts are, I think there's a lot to say about that. There's a value that is not monetized there.
Yes.
And we are in a time now where everybody wants to sell everything. Every blade of grass has to be sponsored on the field. If you could make it work without that, then make it work without that. That's a thought that a lot of people have. And again, I can agree. I agree with both sides.
I know it's like the more you talk about that, I agree. I get it. I agree with it.
I'm being super political. I should take a picture of holding somebody's baby right now. I'm being
well, it's because both arguments I think are strong for different reasons.
I think it comes down to this, and we'll close with this. I don't think that there's a wrong decision. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's a wrong decision. Now, I do know that some of the thoughts and this banter and possibilities about what you could do with that new area. Imagine what you could do if you just made it a massive Carolina athletics conglomerate with all the bells and whistles for everything. And it's new Carolina. I'm going to emphasize, I've been calling it new Carolina since they hired Belichick. And it was really new before that because, to be clear, they were going to push and spend money before Belichick was on the radar. They were changing football spending. Now, they didn't probably have $10 million set aside for the head coach at the time, but they had a lot. Mac was making, what, 4.5, 5? They were going to spend more than that. So New Carolina wants to spend money. New Carolina wants to jump out and sort of set some trends moving forward. I get that. And I think it's great if the UNC power structure does that. I also think it's great if the UNC power structure figures out a way to make it work as is.
100%.
So I don't think I can get any more political than that.
Yeah, and guys, just keep it civil in the comments.
So I guess I learned how to do that, right?
Yeah, you keep it civil in the comments. I understand this is a very divisive thing. I understand that there's some people who lean one way or some people who lean the other way. Emotion comes into it. I completely understand it. I completely get it. And like you said, like I've said a few times, the more AJ talks about the history and everything, the more I start leaning back this way of, you know what, maybe I would renovate the Smith Center. But everybody's entitled to their own opinion. Every Carolina fan's entitled to their own opinion. And I don't think there's a wrong opinion. So let's keep it civil down there. That's all.
But it's not just what AJ tells you with that. AJ's telling you about the money with the new stuff. Imagine owning, if you know the Braves in Atlanta where they play now in the Battery, imagine having something similar to that and UNC athletics owning all of it 12 years from now.
I know. Yeah.
All of it. Every bit of it.
Yeah.
It's intriguing, and it's why we're here at this point. It's why this is a massive story, because
it's a massive story. Yeah, and again,
it's not like they're going to increase the revenue by 3%.
No,
it's much higher than that.
a lot more, and that's just kind of the I don't love it. I mean, I don't like the current, I don't necessarily love everything being about the money. I've never been a big fan of that, but it's just the world we live in, especially now in college sports. So there's so many different factors that you can analyze. But as I've said, I'll end it with this. I completely understand the emotional side of wanting to keep the Smith Center. I can really understand and agree with a lot of things being said, just like I can understand and agree with the other side of wanting to build a new arena and having this kind of new shiny toy you can look at and go in and experience that would set the foundation forward for a new Carolina, like you've talked about as well. But as I said, I just want this to be a civil debate, because I know a lot of people are going to disagree, butt heads, and that's fine, but everybody's entitled to their own opinion on this. And like AJ said, I don't really think there's a wrong answer. I think it just depends.
That's why I hope it doesn't. That's why I hope it doesn't get ugly. There's no animosity on either side.
I just don't want it to divide fans. These are Carolina fans. I don't want them to be divided over an arena or not. I think that we shouldn't be divided over that. You know what I mean?
They went from Woolen Gym to the Dean Dome in 20 years.
It's probably people who didn't want
Carmichael wasn't around that long.
Yeah.
And they didn't. They had some really good. Dean's first teams played in Woolen Gym.
Was there an uproar when they left Carmichael at all? I wonder. I don't know if you'd remember.
I'm not qualified to answer that.
Social media didn't exist. So
I actually think there's some people we could probably bring on one day to talk with about this. Probably some, especially since it was such a departure from everything that was Carmichael. And Carmichael's not a great place. It's still not a great place.
No.
And
not compared to the Smith Center.
Yeah. Okay, imagine if they still played there. A lot of people don't like change. I don't like change. I'm not a big fan of change. Like if I was a Cubs fan, I wouldn't want them to ever leave Wrigley, right? Mm-hmm. But it happens. The Celtics left the Garden, and you know what? They've won a world championship since then. Yeah. If Carolina wins a national championship in basketball and they hang a banner in the new facility, I don't think anybody's going to say, well, damn it, I would like this more if they would just still be in the other place and hang the banner there.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. Yeah. And two, I would not be in favor of it at all of a new arena if it doesn't have some model over the Smith Center, if it's still not called Roy Williams Court, if there's
going to be called that
banners in the sky. Like if that's the case, then no, stay in the Smith Center. If you're going to just kind of wipe the history array and make it this shell of an arena with no heart or anything, then no, I don't want that. But you can have
I can tell you right now, they'll do it right. They'll do it classy because they do things classy there.
100%.
And it will ooze Carolina history. Ooze Carolina history.
It sounds pretty cool, man. Like I said,
my idea for the Dean Dome, if they do this, Virginia has something called the Lawn, where specific seniors get to earn the right to stay at the Lawn their senior year. Carolina should turn the Dean Dome into a senior student housing for a year.
Yeah.
We have the upper deck and lower deck, but keep the court in some capacity there, and even the baskets, so it stays there
forever.
And it's like a courtyard in the middle of an apartment complex, and it have your upper tier and your lower tier. And have like two tiers of student housing living in the Dean Dome.
That'd be pretty cool.
And it could be some kind of academic honor, that you get to stay there as a senior.
Yeah. That's how. Yeah, you've talked about me before about that, and I think that'd be awesome. Just you have to honor. If you're going to build a new arena, I don't agree that you should just tear the Smith Center down and have no memory or no, recognition of it being there. It has to be honored, and there's too much history in that building for it not to be, especially for a blue blood program like North Carolina. So, yeah, get involved in the comments. We want to hear from you guys. Again, I don't think there's any wrong answers here, but just want it to be a civil conversation. I don't want people, starting to hate each other who used to like each other because, oh, you want the Smith Center rebuilt? No, I want it to stay there. Like, I want it to be a civil conversation where people just, hey, this is what I think, and I disagree with your opinion, but it's fine because that's just how it should be in general, but especially with a conversation like this. So, yeah, I think it's a good place to wrap this up, AJ. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. Long edition of our UNC basketball show. Not quite the length of David and AJ's pods, but we're creeping in on it. We're creeping in on it right now. Usually,
I've got to send David a text because now we're going to be running.
Yeah,
late.
We got to do a quick Georgia Tech preview pod, look ahead pod. We'll do that and bang that out, and then AJ and Dave are going to record one. So a lot of great content coming this week before the Georgia Tech game, and obviously AJ will be down in Atlanta, and Noah as well will be down there too. So looking forward to it. Make sure you guys keep it locked to TarGirl247.com. Like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. I've been Jacob. He's been AJ. See y'all next time. Thanks.